Ever think about those conflicts from the ancient world? Battles between kings, names we barely recognize now.
Lost to time, mostly.
Exactly. But imagine, right in the middle of all that chaos, this one incredible act of bravery.
I think I know where you're going with this.
Yeah. Today, we're doing a deep dive into a really fascinating historical account. It involves Abram, who later becomes Abraham, of course, a high-stakes rescue mission, and then this very strange meeting.
A very pivotal story. We're drawing on ancient texts that describe this whole sequence, Abram rescuing his nephew, Lot, and that encounter with Melchizedek.
It gives us such a unique window, doesn't it? Into the power plays, the alliances.
And the individuals who really shaped things back then.
Okay, so let's set the scene. It opens with this massive clash. Seriously big. We're talking 9 kings involved.
9, right. It wasn't a small border dispute. You had a major coalition, 4 kings attacking 5 others.
The attackers were King Amraphel of Babylonia, the ancient Iraq, King Arioch of Elasar, King Kedorlaomer of Elam, which is sort of ancient Iran, and King Tidal of Goyim. Quite the lineup.
A powerful alliance, especially with Kedorlaomer of Elam involved. Elam and Babylonia were significant players in the region at that time. They were facing off against 5 local kings from the area around the Dead Sea.
Right, the Siddim Valley kings, that's King Bera of Sodom, King Bersha of Gomorrah, King Shinab of Admah, King Shember of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, which was also called Zoar.
So it points to a major fight for control over that whole valley area.
And there's history here, too. It wasn't just out of the blue. Apparently, these 5 kings had been subject to Kedorlaomer for 12 years.
12 years of paying tribute, likely. And then in the 13th year, they decided they'd had enough. They rebelled.
You can feel the tension building. But, well, the rebellion didn't go as planned.
Not at all. Kedorlaomer and his allies didn't take it lightly. The next year, they launched this huge counteroffensive. The text describes them sweeping down, defeating groups like the Rephates, the Zuzites, the Emites, the Horites.
Just one after another.
Yeah, pushing all the way south to El Paran, near the desert. They even took territory from the Amalekites and Amorites around Kadesh and Hazazon Tamar. It shows just how far Kedorlaomer's reach extended.
He was clearly the dominant power. Which brings us to the main event, the battle in the Siddim Valley itself. And the source mentions something. Well, pretty nasty. Tar pits.
Yes, the valley was known for its bitumen pits, natural asphalt seepage. Adds a whole other layer of danger to the fighting, doesn't it?
Absolutely. So when the 5 kings' armies broke and ran,
Many of them fell right into these tar pits. A grim detail. The survivors scattered into the mountains.
a really brutal end to their uprising. And the winners didn't stop there. They went on to sack Sodom and Gomorrah.
Took everything, spoils, food supplies, captives, and this is where the story really shifts focus.
Because Abram's nephew, Lot, was living in Sodom.
Exactly. Lot gets captured along with his family and all his possessions, everything he owned.
Suddenly, this regional conflict becomes intensely personal for Abram. How does he even find out?
Well, one of Lot's men apparently managed to escape the capture and the chaos. He made his way to Abram.
Abram the Hebrew, the text calls him. He was living near Hebron, near the oaks of Mamre the Amorite at the time.
Right, and Mamre and his relatives, Eshcol and Aner, they were actually Abram's allies. It shows Abram had integrated locally built relationships.
So Abram gets this devastating news about Lot. What's his move?
Immediate action, no hesitation. He mobilizes his own men, 318 of them, described as trained men, born in his household.
318, that's
What?
well, that's a decent number for a personal force, but compared to Kedorlaomer's victorious army.
It seems like long odds, definitely, but it points to Abram being a significant figure in his own right, a leader with loyal, capable people. He doesn't just mourn Lot, he goes after him.
A rescue mission. He pursues Kedorlaomer's army, which must have been moving slower now, laden with plunder.
Presumably, Abram catches up with them way up north, at Dan.
And he doesn't just charge in blindly. He uses strategy.
Very clever tactics, actually. He divides his forces, attacks at night.
A surprise night attack against an army that probably thought the fighting was over.
Precisely. The element of surprise, the darkness, maybe some overconfidence on Kedorlaomer's side. It works. Abram routs them.
And they flee. Does he stop there?
No, he keeps up the chase, pursues them even further north, past Damascus to a place called Hobah. He was relentless.
Wow. And the outcome?
A stunning success. Abram recovers everything, all the goods stolen from Sodom and Gomorrah, Lot and his possessions, the women, the other captives, everyone.
That is remarkable. A smaller force using tactics and determination, achieving a complete turnaround.
It must have massively boosted his reputation in the region, which sets up his return journey and some very interesting meetings.
Okay, so he's heading back south victorious. Who does he meet first?
The king of Sodom comes out to meet him, probably eager to get his people and property back, right? They meet in the Valley of Sheva, also called the King's Valley.
But wait, before that interaction, someone else appears. This is the really intriguing part.
Yes. Melchizedek.
Melchizedek, king of Salem, which many traditions connect with Jerusalem, and described as a priest of God Most High. El Elyon.
A very mysterious figure, king and priest. That combination itself is noteworthy, and he doesn't come asking for anything initially.
No, he brings something to Abram. Bread and wine.
Yeah, bread and wine, a gesture of peace, hospitality, maybe something more ritualistic.
It feels significant. And then he blesses Abram.
He does. He blesses Abram in the name of God Most High, creator of heaven and earth, and then blesses God Most High for giving Abram the victory.
Using that specific title, God Most High, and Abram's response.
Abram gives Melchizedek a tenth, a tithe of all the spoils he recovered.
A tenth. That's often a sign of recognizing someone's authority, isn't it? Especially priestly or royal authority.
It certainly suggests Abram recognized Melchizedek's status, his spiritual role perhaps, acknowledging the blessing he received.
So this figure, Melchizedek, king, priest, using this name for God, he just sort of appears and receives honor from Abram. It makes you wonder who exactly he was.
It does. He stands apart from the other figures in the narrative. Priest of God Most High implies a connection to a deity, maybe understood differently than the local pantheons. Some see him as representing a more universal priesthood, perhaps. His presence adds this whole spiritual layer to the story.
A really profound moment. Okay, so after this encounter with Melchizedek, then Abram talks with the king of Sodom.
Right. And the king of Sodom makes what sounds like a reasonable offer on the surface.
He says, give me the people, you can keep all the goods, all that recovered wealth.
Seems generous, maybe, but Abram's reaction is incredibly strong.
He refuses, point blank.
More than just refuses. He swears an oath. By the Lord God Most High, creator of heaven and earth. Notice he uses that same divine title Melchizedek used.
And he swears he won't take anything, not a thread, not even a sandal strap that belonged to the king of Sodom.
His reasoning is crystal clear.
Yeah, he says, so that you will never be able to say, I made Abram rich. He wants absolutely no ambiguity about the source of his prosperity.
It's a powerful statement about his priorities. His wealth, his success, comes from his relationship with God Most High, not from human kings, especially not the king of Sodom. It shows his integrity, his independence.
Avoiding any implication that he's indebted to or enriched by the king of a city like Sodom.
A conscious separation. But he's also fair.
Right, he makes an exception. He says he'll accept nothing for himself, except for what his young fighting men have already eaten.
Practical necessity. And he insists his allies Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre, the ones who went with him, get their fair share of the spoils.
So, principled, but not unrealistic. He honors his agreements and looks after his people.
Exactly. It shows both his strong moral stance and his responsible leadership.
Okay, so if we pull back and look at this whole sequence, what are the big takeaways here?
Well, several things stand out. First, Abram's loyalty to his family, risking everything for Lot. Then there's his courage and, frankly, his military skill. Leading that smaller force to victory wasn't luck.
That night attack shows real tactical thinking. And his commitment to justice, recovering the captives.
Definitely. Then you have the Melchizedek encounter. It's just unique. This king-priest, the blessing, the tie that elevates the story beyond just a military rescue.
It introduces this spiritual dimension, this recognition of God Most High, acknowledged by both Melchizedek and Abram. What does Melchizedek represent? It's fascinating.
It hints at spiritual currents maybe outside the main polytheistic systems of the time. And Abram's interaction with him suggests Abram was open to or part of that understanding.
And finally, that exchange with the king of Sodom, Abram's refusal to take the spoils.
That really highlights his integrity, his complete reliance on his God, not on worldly powers or potentially tainted wealth. He sets himself apart. It's a powerful lesson in principle.
And just the list of names, the kingdoms involved, it gives you a little snapshot of the complex political world back then.
A glimpse into the ancient Near East, yeah. Alliances, rebellions, major powers like Elam flexing their muscles.
So wrapping up this deep dive, we started with a huge regional war, 9 kings battling it out.
which led to Lot's capture, pulling Abram into the conflict.
Then Abram's incredibly daring and successful rescue mission against the odds.
Followed by that mystifying encounter with Melchizedek, the priest king.
And ending with Abram's principled refusal of riches from the king of Sodom.
The surprising parts are definitely the scale of it all. Abram's unlikely win and Melchizedek himself. He just appears, blesses, receives a tithe, and is gone from the story.
It leaves you thinking, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What does this ancient story really tell us about leadership today? About loyalty, courage, integrity.
And about faith. Abram's absolute conviction, Melchizedek's blessing. What is the nature of blessing, of divine favor?
Yeah. Maybe consider this. What might the lasting impact of encounters like these, of victory, the blessing, the moral stand, have been on Abram himself and on the whole trajectory of history that followed from him? It's a glimpse into a foundational moment full of questions that still resonate.